Imagine walking into a room, dropping a single penny on the floor, and watching a grown adult instantly bounce up and down. They stare blankly at the wall and they chant, "Ice cream so good."
Right. And then, you drop another penny and they do it again, instantly.
Exactly. Now imagine 60,000 people across the country are doing this right now. They're making a full-time living, acting like looping, broken robots. I mean, we are looking at a digital landscape where we are no longer just operating machines. We are actively volunteering to become them.
It's a profound structural inversion of human behavior. From a purely economic standpoint, we are looking at a system where the human nervous system itself is being optimized for algorithmic extraction.
Yes.
And what's most alarming isn't even the behavior itself, It's the sheer ruthless efficiency with which the surrender of human agency has been financialized.
Which is exactly why we are not here today to just laugh at some quirky internet meme. We are treating this as a dark milestone in human evolution. Our stack of sources today is extensive, guys. We're looking at cold economic data on platform monetization. We've got clinical neuroimaging studies on short video addiction and high-level sociological research detailing digital labor and cultural degradation.
Very heavy, very dense data sets today.
Right. And our mission for you listening is to really deconstruct how human dignity is being actively commodified and neurologically reprogrammed through basically digital operant conditioning. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we can begin to analyze the psychological decay of the audience, we have to dissect the cold, algorithmic economics that incentivize a human being to act like a broken robot in the first place.
Well, we can't just write them off as broken robots, though. To understand the economics here, we really have to look at the mechanics of the performance itself as a highly optimized financial instrument.
Fair point. Break that down.
So the concept originated in late 2021 with a Japanese creator named Natsu Koko. She began experimenting with this very mechanical body language.
I remember seeing those early clips.
Right. But the phenomenon was explosively popularized in July 2023 by a creator known as Pinky Doll. And the mechanics here are clinical in their precision. The creator operates as a literal human vending machine.
A human vending machine, that's exactly what it looks like.
Right. They maintain this continuous rhythmic bouncing motion, and they only execute specific verbal and physical responses when prompted by virtual GIFs. GIFs that are sent by viewers in real time.
And the UI on the screen, if you've seen it, is just a barrage of cartoon graphics. The viewer clicks a digital icon of an ice cream cone, and the creator instantly responds with a pre-programmed phrase like, ice cream's so good.
Yep.
Or the different icon prompts gang.
Yeah.
It is immediate, it's transactional, and it is deliberately devoid of any spontaneous human thought.
And the hyper-efficient microtransaction ecosystem that is driving this is just staggering. I mean, this is where the behavioral economics get really dark.
Let's get into the numbers, because they blew my mind.
Okay, so viewers purchase TikTok coins with real fiat currency. A bundle of 70 coins costs about 74 cents.
So roughly a cent a coin.
Exactly. They then use these coins to send animated GIFs. A digital rose costs just 1 coin, so the creator gets a fraction of a cent.
Which sounds completely harmless, right? Like tossing a penny in a fountain.
Right, but the scale of these GIFs escalates exponentially. There's a gift called the TikTok Universe, and that costs 44,999 coins.
Okay, wait, let's do the math on that for a second. If 70 coins are 74 cents, then a 45,000 total coin gift is, what, over $500?
It translates to over $560 out of the viewer's pocket for a single momentary screen animation.
That is insane. Someone is paying the equivalent of a monthly car payment in real fiat currency to essentially press a button and watch a human being twitch on command for 5 seconds.
Yes, and the sheer volume of these microtransactions renders the practice incredibly lucrative for the creator. Pinky Doll reported earning up to $7,000 a day at her peak.
See, I have to imagine that's just a lottery winner anomaly, right? Like most people doing this can't actually be making a living.
You would think so, but the Ipsos research data in our stack tells a completely different story. Over 60,000 US-based creators are making more than the median part-time monthly income exclusively from these virtual GIFs.
Oh, wow. 60,000.
Over 60,000. And that is after the platform takes a remarkably aggressive 50% cut of the revenue.
50%. That's extortionate.
Well, the platform essentially operates as an automated rent extractor. It provides the digital infrastructure and the behavioral conditioning algorithms, and in return, it siphons half the economic value of the human performance.
And this is exactly why I fundamentally reject the popular narrative that this represents some sort of triumph of the quote-unquote creator economy.
It's definitely not.
It is the absolute opposite. This is the ultimate realization of digital Taylorism. There is a technological theorist, Adrian Hahn, who writes about the concept of living below the API.
Ah, yes, the application programming interface.
Right. An API is basically how software talks to other software. Hahn argues that if you live above the API, you are directing the software. You are a manager playing the game. If you live below the API, you are the one being directed. You are the non-playable character.
But what's fascinating here is how this differs from previous iterations of labor. Like, an Amazon warehouse worker lives below the API because an algorithm dictates their physical route through a warehouse to optimize shipping times.
Exactly.
But that is physical management.
Right. The NPC streamer takes it a massive step further. They were voluntarily plugging their own central nervous system directly into the API. They are trading their high-level human dignity, their capacity for spontaneous, nuanced expression for digital pennies. I mean, they are transforming themselves into programmable meat.
It's a stark way to put it, but yes.
But look, I get why Pinky Doll does it.
Yeah.
She's making $7 grand a day. That is pure economic survival in a brutal gig economy. What I cannot wrap my head around is the person on the other side of the screen. Who are these viewers? Why is someone paying real money to force a human being to act like a broken machine?
To answer that, we have to look at the behavioral economics of the consumer. It is a transaction of parasocial domination.
Yeah, social domination, okay.
Yes, the viewer is not paying for a compelling narrative. They aren't paying for artistic enlightenment or even traditional entertainment. They are paying for a guaranteed instant reaction. It is dopamine on demand.
It feels incredibly bleak, like you're buying a momentary sliver of power over someone else.
That is exactly what it is. In a digital environment characterized by chaos, economic uncertainty, and just overwhelming complexity, the NPC stream offers absolute predictability.
Right. The real world is messy, but the stream obeys you.
Exactly. The viewer exerts a micromonetized control over another human being's physical reality, and they receive immediate, unquestioning compliance.
And as a sociologist, I cannot ignore the deeply gendered humiliation inherent in this relational labor. Almost all the top earners in this specific format are young women. Have you ever read Arlie Hochschild's work on emotional labor?
I know the concept, but break down exactly how she defines it for this context.
Sure. So Hochschild coined the term in the 1980s to describe the gap between what a worker actually feels and the emotional state they are forced to display to keep their job.
Like service industry smiles.
Exactly. Think of a flight attendant forced to smile at an abusive passenger. Well, NPC streaming is the absolute extreme commodification of that emotional labor. These female streamers are systematically stripped of their internal agency. They're forced into a state of continuous, submissive playfulness that must remain entirely detached from whatever they're actually feeling inside.
It is the literal reduction of the female form to an interactive toy.
Yes, and it's deeply disturbing.
And our sources indicate that this dynamic exists on a spectrum. Because if you follow this logic to its darkest extreme, we see the complete erosion of ethical boundaries between creator and consumer. The qualitative sociological studies on South Asian and Pakistani TikTok networks detail a phenomenon known as punishment matches.
Yes, this was the most disturbing part of the research stack by far.
It's intense. In these live, split-screen broadcasts, two streamers compete to see who can extract the highest volume of virtual gifts from their respective audiences within a strict time limit.
So the audiences are basically fighting each other with their wallets.
Precisely. But the loser of this financial extraction game is subjected to degrading, audience-dictated shaming rituals.
And we aren't talking about lighthearted pranks either. The loser is forced into highly humiliating acts, dictated in real time by the winning audience. It is quite literally public degradation as a spectator sport.
The data describes these matches as operating with the psychological intensity of total institutions. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a terrifying, modernized manifestation of Michel Foucault's concept of the panopticon.
Oh, break the panopticon down for us. That's a great connection.
So Foucault used the panopticon, which was an architectural design for a prison, as a metaphor for modern social control. Imagine a circular prison with a watchtower in the exact center.
Okay.
The prisoners in the outer ring can never see inside the tower, so they never know exactly when they are being watched. Because they might be watched at any given second, they alter their behavior and they police themselves. They internalize the surveillance.
But the platform economy has innovated on Foucault, hasn't it? In the NPC punishment match, The surveillance isn't hidden in a tower. It is broadcast globally, and the surveillance itself is monetized.
Which raises a really important question regarding the viewer.
It brings us to the core ethical decay of the audience. I actually want to pose this directly to you, the listener. Think about this. When you exist in a digital ecosystem where you can purchase a human being's behavioral compliance for a 1-cent digital rose, what does that do to your baseline empathy?
It fundamentally alters it.
Right. When human reaction is priced at a fraction of a cent, the inherent value of a human being is fundamentally degraded in your own mind.
And that degradation is not merely philosophical, it is strictly biological.
This is where the data gets wild.
Yes. If the economic transaction degrades the creator's dignity, the consumption of this repetitive, low-context content fundamentally degrades the viewer's biology. We have to move from sociology to neurobiology to understand the true cost here. We are talking about literal brain rot.
I want to pause on that term, brain rot, because the etiology of it is fascinating. Oxford University Press named brain rot their 2024 word of the year, defining it as the deterioration of a person's mental state from the overconsumption of trivial online content. But the term was actually coined way back in 1854 by Henry David Thoreau in his book Walden. He was criticizing the intellectual decline of society, comparing it directly to the European potato rot that had devastated crops a decade earlier.
That's incredible context. The difference, though, is that Thoreau was speaking metaphorically.
Right.
Modern neuroimaging studies on short video addiction, or SVA, demonstrate that brain rot is a quantifiable physiological reality. The clinical data is entirely unambiguous.
Okay, hold on. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Oh.
Are we just pathologizing bad taste? I mean, every single generation hates the media the younger generation consumes. My parents told me watching MTV would rot my brain.
True.
How is this actually different from the moral panic over comic books or television?
Because we can literally see the structural changes in the brain via functional MRIs. It is not about the cultural value of the content, it is about the delivery mechanism itself. Compulsive consumers of this highly gamified short-form content exhibit measurable structural changes. Specifically, we see increased gray matter volume in the orbitofrontal cortex and the cerebellum.
Okay, wait. Orbitofrontal what? Translate that for someone who doesn't have a medical degree. What does an enlarged orbitofrontal cortex actually do to a person?
Right, so the orbitofrontal cortex is central to reward processing and decision-making. Think of it like a muscle.
Okay.
If you go to the gym and you only do bicep curls, your biceps get massive, but your back and shoulders atrophy. By swiping through thousands of unpredictable short videos and microtransacting with NPCs, you're constantly flexing your brain's reward-seeking muscle.
Wow.
The increase in volume there indicates a heightened, almost pathological sensitivity to gamified rewards. The brain is literally adapting to prioritize sensory-rich, rapid feedback loops over everything else.
So you become hypersensitive to the quick hit, but what are you losing in the process?
You lose executive control. The MRIs show heightened spontaneous neural activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the DLPFC.
And what does that govern?
That area governs planning, sustained attention, and impulse control. When the DLPFC is subjected to this kind of continuous, erratic hyperstimulation, it fatigues. The user physically loses the ability to sustain complex, goal-directed thought.
Which perfectly serves the platform's economic model. If your impulse control is fried, you are far more likely to make an impulsive microtransaction.
Exactly.
You feel a spike of existential inadequacy, and because your executive control is shot, you immediately seek the soothing, predictable compliance of the NPC streamer to artificially regulate your emotional state.
You buy a digital gift to buy a feeling of control.
Exactly. The biological atrophy directly feeds the economic extraction. It's a closed loop. I must interject here to address the sociopolitical origins of the term NPC, because it perfectly illustrates this loss of complex thought. And we are reporting this impartially, strictly as a historical data point found in our sociological sources.
Yes, the political context is important.
During the Trump presidency, the term NPC was heavily utilized by far-right internet users to describe liberals. They used it to frame their political opponents as subhuman drones who mindlessly repeated pre-programmed talking points devoid of an internal monologue.
Right.
Now, we take no political stance on that usage, but it is critical to note how the concept of the programmable human permeated the cultural consciousness before being explicitly financialized by these platforms.
It is a vital contextual point. The cultural anxiety regarding a loss of individual agency, the fear of becoming an automaton, preceded the economic model that currently exploits it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If we synthesize your neuroimaging data with the economic structure, we are not just looking at a bad habit. We are looking at a mass deployment of a Skinner box.
Yes. B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning chamber.
Right. Skinner proved that you can condition animal behavior using variable reward schedules. If a rat presses a lever and gets food every single time, it gets bored.
Predictability breeds apathy.
Exactly. But if it presses the lever and gets food at random, unpredictable intervals, it becomes obsessed. It will press the lever until it collapses. TikTok hasn't just created an addictive app. It has engineered a mass neurological conditioning experiment on a global scale.
The variable reward isn't food, though.
No, it's the unpredictability of the content feed, or the unpredictable way the NPC streamer might say your specific username when you send a gift. It actively punishes sustained, complex, critical thought by starving it of stimulation, while hyper-rewarding impulsive, shallow interactions with massive dopamine spikes.
Which really forces us to evaluate what this conditioning means for human culture at large. I mean, are we witnessing a temporary mindless decay or a symptom of a much deeper terminal societal collapse?
A million-dollar question.
Right. To answer that, we must look at how the academic world is attempting to frame this. And surprisingly, there is actually a robust academic defense of brain rot emerging among cultural theorists.
You're referring to the argument that this is a modern daddyist movement. I find this absolutely wild.
It is a serious academic position, though. Some researchers equate NPC streams and the broader brain rot vernacular of Generation Z and Generation Alpha terms like skibidi, gyat, and phantom tax to early 20th century daddyism.
Fascinating.
We have a comparative multimodal study in our stack analyzing Italian and Romanian brain rot content. This study frames the intentionally absurd, computer-generated, contextless nature of this media as a cynical, anarchic rebellion against the relentless pressures of capitalist productivity and self-optimization.
So they're arguing that acting like a broken robot is a rejection of meaning in a world that feels economically meaningless.
Yes. The study notes that this content deliberately removes traditional authorship, echoing the French literary theorist Roland Barthes and his concept of the death of the author. It is a collective remixed chaos.
It's gotten so huge.
It has become such a prominent cultural force that even Pope Francis addressed it during the 2025 Jubilee of the World of Communications.
Wait, the Pope talked about brain rot.
He did. He explicitly warned against the spiritual and mental decay of what he termed putrefazione cerebral putrefaction. He was urging a reduction in social media use. And again, we view his statement purely as a sociological indicator of how deeply this phenomenon has penetrated global institutional awareness.
Okay, so the elite academic defense is that acting like an idiot online is actually a profound critique of late-stage capitalism. I'm sorry, but I think the daddyist defense is intellectually bankrupt.
Tell me why.
True daddyism, emerging from the horrors of World War I, sought to actively disrupt traditional power structures. It was meant to break the machinery of the establishment. NPC streaming does the exact opposite. It perfectly submits to the dominant power structure of our era. Algorithmic platform capitalism.
It is the ultimate form of commodity fetishism.
Exactly. It is not a rebellion. It is complete abject surrender. It reduces the entirety of human physical and emotional expression to a literal product on a digital shelf. You aren't overthrowing the system by bouncing up and down and saying ice cream's so good for pennies. You are optimizing yourself to be the most efficient, frictionless product within that system.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate irony is inescapable. This supposed anarchic rebellion against capitalist productivity is, in reality, the exact behavioral output that the platform monetizes most efficiently.
Bingo.
The algorithm does not care if the content is absurd, profound, or daddyist. It only measures engagement, retention, and transaction volume. By engaging in brain rot, users are generating the exact data and microdonations the platform requires to maximize shareholder value. The rebellion hasn't just been commodified, it was engineered by the commodity itself.
So what does this all mean? Let's really synthesize the gravity of what we've unpacked today. We have traced this NPC epidemic from its microeconomic roots in the TikTok API, where platform rent extraction forces creators below the API. We've looked at the panoptic, gendered humiliation of the human vending machine, where viewers purchase parasocial domination. And we've drilled all the way down to the literal structural changes in the gray matter of the addicted human brain, where the executive function atrophies in real time.
We have definitively established that this is not a passing internet fad. It is a structural redefinition of digital labor, of human intimacy, and of cognitive function. The convergence of algorithmic conditioning, economic desperation, and neurobiological vulnerability has created an ecosystem where human dignity is happily traded for fraction of a cent digital tokens.
Which brings us to the ultimate consequence of this reality. Earlier, you mentioned the French philosopher Roland Barthes. Barthes famously argued that the toys of childhood prefigure the adult world. He said that toys condition children to accept the underlying rules, power dynamics, and social structures of the reality they are about to inherit.
I want to leave you with this thought. If today's youth are being neurologically conditioned by brain rot and NPC streams, an environment where human beings are routinely treated as programmable, emotionless vending machines that dispense reactions for loose change, what kind of cold, transactional adult reality are we currently prefiguring for the future of human society?